Carl. So we've got the first MacBook refresh for 2024. This is the updated M3 MacBook Air. The MacBook lineup, or I guess the MacBook Air lineup, is their best selling laptop. So this comes essentially in the same configurations as before. You still have the two sizes, 13, 15, same colorways. Starlight, Silver, Space Gray, as well as Midnight, but taking out the Midnight option, which is the one that I have here, has the new anodization process similar to Space Black found on the MacBook Pro. Essentially should help with fingerprints. And if you actually take a look, the box design from the last M2 is exactly the same. So don't expect too many visual changes. And as this slide up, laptop obviously front face and center, and designed by California in Apple if you're new to the channel. So obviously with the Air, you have the two brick size options. So you have the 35 watt, which is a dual charger. This comes standard on upgraded models, or if you get the base, you can buy this for like 20 US bucks, $30 Canadian. And of course you have the braided cable, which is color matched in Midnight, which has the little MagSafe connector, which is always nice. Obviously Apple keeps it super simple. User manuals, warranty info, and of course color matched Apple stickers, which is also nice. And here's your kind of first look at the new Midnight. So obviously the color hasn't changed. It's just that new anodization process. Obviously with Apple, that computer starts up right away, removing that. And that looks obviously super, super sleek. And as this starts up, even with the Space Black from the MacBook Pro, it's not completely prone to not having fingerprints. I remember the M2 MacBook Air in Midnight. That thing was just straight up like an absolute magnet. Hopefully this new anodization process should help. It's still not as good as like the Silver, even the Space Gray, in keeping smudges away, but hopefully this will kind of help over time. I'm sure as I use this more and more, I'll kind of circle back and let you know what I think. But even on the front, I've used it for a couple seconds. You can see there are a couple smudges. Like I said, it won't be completely perfect, but still better than what we've seen in the past. So as you can see, pretty much identical for the actual body. We've still got the two sizes, like I mentioned, 13 and 15. We still have the same keyboard, still the same layout. You don't have the speakers on the side like on the MacBook Pro, but honestly, I find the speaker system for this to be one of the better ones. And obviously the large trackpad if you have the 15-inch model. You still got Touch ID, still have that 1080p front-facing camera, which is pretty decent, and that little notch to kind of signify that. In all, it is a solid form factor, still razor thin. Obviously what I love, you've still got the two USB-C ports, that MagSafe charger, and on the other side, you just have the headphone jack. It's really tough to get anything smaller. If you remember, MacBook Airs had the wedge style shape. They've kind of gone with just, I guess, the unibody rectangular shape. And even with this new anodization process, I've used this for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. You can see the fingerprints collecting on this corner. So even with that, I would still kind of shy away from the Midnight, even though it looks really good, brand new. But if you are like OCD about it, you will still see that no matter what, unfortunately. That's just the unfortunate case with darker laptops in general. There's really nothing around that. And I'm not too sure if this is just my unit here, but I've tried to clean this a bunch of times. It's not kind of going away. It's almost like they missed the anodization process around the Apple logo. It is a bit lighter, and like I said, I'm wiping it down. Nothing seems to help. Not too sure if it's just my unit, just something I've noticed. So to the overall spec, I pretty much have a mid-range model. So this is obviously the 15-inch. It's got 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage. Base models still start at $1099 for the 13, $1299 for the 15. My recommended route to go is upgrade the RAM to at least 16 gigs. Maybe you can get by with 256. You can always get like an external SSD, but bump that up to 512 if you can. You don't need to max this thing out completely. You can spec this with 2 terabytes. Obviously, Apple charges an arm and a leg for storage, and that model is like $2,500. So I would say, you know, base plus the few upgrades, you're looking at around $1,200-1,300 bucks for a solid computer. But performance-wise, actually in between some of these shots, I've started editing this video already. It's obviously super smooth. Anything with Apple Silicon, even coming from the M1, when Apple compared it, this is 60% better. They, funnily enough, didn't compare this to the M2 chip, but it obviously is a super fast machine, pretty much for 90-95% of people out there, unless you really need that slot for the SD card, unless you really need that extra computing power if you're crunching a lot of 4K files, which this still does, maybe if you have like a couple streams of that, and obviously ProMotion for the display. That's kind of hard to compare unless you have them side by side. I think most people, this computer is my recommended one if you're in the space for an Apple laptop. I love the fact that they have the two sizes, 13 and 15, but on the M2 chip, which Apple still sells, that's now $100 cheaper. They have fully discontinued the M1 model, but sadly, if you want the 15-inch model, your only option is the M3, or you can just buy something secondhand, or if they've got them still kicking around on Best Buy. So just make sure you kind of take that into note. I will actually bring my M2 MacBook Air kind of side by side. So I've got this one in Starlight, and of course this one is in the Midnight for your little comparison sake. It pretty much looks identical. I'll run some benchmarks across to kind of see the performance, but kind of going between both devices, between M2 and M3, I honestly didn't notice too much of a difference. So if you already have M2, no need to upgrade to M3. If you have M1, I think you can almost get by another year. Obviously, if you're coming from anything Intel based 4 or 5 years ago, this is probably the best time to upgrade to this machine. So curious to hear what you guys have to say about the MacBook Air. If you're picking one up, just be wary for midnight. It's definitely gotten better, but in no way are you escaping any of that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick little review. Not really too big of an upgrade, just nice to see a new chip in it, but nevertheless, we're kind of moving forward. I'll catch the rest of you in one of my next vids, and if you're kind of looking at the Apple release schedule, I'm sure we'll see an iPhone 15 in a new colorway. We'll probably see a refresh like iPad Pro coming, so make sure you're subbed for those, and till then, peace.